there's some of us so hung up on our side of the story. This is the service we provide. These are the benefits that we offer. This is how we do it. When you haven't actually touched on the need of your user or your customer.
This is The Entrepreneur Way with Neil Ball. Unlocking the secrets of successful entrepreneurs 7 days a week. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter at Neil D. Ball. Napoleon Hill said the power of the mastermind is the driving force. To discover how you can unlock the potential in your business using the power of a mastermind, go to mastermindunlimited.com. And now, here is your host, Neil Ball.
Hello everybody, it's Neil Ball here, and thank you so much for joining me today on The Entrepreneur Way. The Entrepreneur Way is about the entrepreneur's journey, the vision, the mindset, the commitment, the sacrifice, failures and successes. I'm so excited to bring you our special guest today, Nancy Lucas. But before I introduce you to her, I have a little bit of trivia for you. Bill James said, I try to take large, general questions that are difficult to resolve and break them down into small, very specific questions that have clear answers. The Entrepreneur Way asks the questions so we all get the insight, inspiration and ideas to apply in our businesses. Nancy, welcome to the show. Are you ready to share your version of the Entrepreneur Way with us?
Absolutely, Neil, and thank you for having me today.
It's a pleasure. Nancy Lucas has been an entrepreneur since her dad made her save money to buy clay craft sets when she was 8 years old. With a BA in communication, a master's in education, and 2 decades as a business owner, she now serves as co-founder and author coordinator of anactionplan.com. Nancy, can you provide us with some more insight into your business and personal life to allow us to get to know more about what you do and who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an interesting mix, especially being in an entrepreneurial circle. Mm-hmm. Every Wednesday, I go to a program called 1 Million Cups, and that's actually where I met the founder and had the opportunity to co-found this project with him. So personally, I'm a single mom with 4 kids. So, when you have to do what you have to do, you go do it. Mm-hmm. And I think all entrepreneurs feel that way. I've felt that way my whole life. If there was a goal, I was going to attain it. So what we do at an action plan is guide people through life events with action plans. Mm-hmm. And we look for other experts that have that content. They can explain it in 5 to 7 steps and really help somebody through their big life event.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And how do you make money from what you do?
It's a profit-sharing revenue. Mm-hmm. Right now, because we're in the startup phase, we're sharing 90% with the authors, and we keep 10%. Mm-hmm. And once we hit a goal of 100 authors, then we'll move to a membership model. Also, when we can prove the scalability and traction and everything else.
Okay. So when you can you tell me a little bit more about your website and action plan? So you basically take people and line them with advisors. Is that what you're saying? Am I understanding?
A little bit. It's a little bit like life coaching, and there are other sites that connect people who need a life coach. But let me tell you a little bit about our founder's story. His name is George Everett, and mm-hmm. he is brilliant. He's written huge pieces of software around semantics and word searches and connecting these key phrases. And he has given me permission to share this story. Okay. He and his wife were going through a bit of a season, and he wasn't satisfied with an element of their marriage. So he did what we all do, right? Go to Google and what comes up, but way too much information. Mm. So he, in his brilliance and able to take phrases and match them up and line them up, he was able to actually pull for himself an action plan to fix what he wanted to fix. He did fix it. And to this day, I don't even think his wife knows what he did. Mm-hmm. But now he's happier in the marriage because of the action plan that he created and followed. So he realized, wow, if I'm so smart at this and it took me all of that effort, maybe this could be helpful to other people in a lot of areas of life. And so, we did our market research. He's done the testing of, what other sites are out there. There are a lot of brilliant people on the planet who help people. And yet when somebody is in a situation, I myself went through several, big life events that you don't know how to talk to somebody about. Or other people don't want to hear your drama. That's the other side of it. They just don't want to hear the drama. So we were able to pull it down into an action plan. That's really what somebody needs when they're in either something they're planning, like pregnancy, marriage, house, buying a house, or something they're not planning. Your house is infested with black mold and you're sick, or bankruptcy, or divorce, or the loss of a loved one. What is the next step? And there's not really a platform that we've found yet, other than our own, that tells you, here's your first step. This is where you start.
Okay. You actually recommend people that can help people then? Is that how you do it?
No, my imagination is that someday we're going to be like as big as Amazon, and we'll be a self-help feature of that. Because when somebody's needing help, it's not really the time they have to absorb an entire book or learn something new. Yeah. They really need, the nitty and gritty. Give me the steps. Let me get through this situation. And then, they can look at the underlying roots and do their self-healing, that kind of thing. So we just look for authors that have that kind of content, that can be the guide. Somebody who's looking for help right now goes to Google. Mm-hmm. Someday they'll go to anactionplan.com and say, I need to lose 100 pounds. How can I find peace? Something like that.
I understand. Awesome. And what do you enjoy most about what you do?
Oh my gosh, Neil. I think as an interviewer, you might, feel the same way. I meet the most amazing people.
Yeah.
Everyone that I've been able to work with and help them start or finish their action plan are just beautiful. Beautiful inside, beautiful outside. Such lovely hearts, and just a mission to help other people. And George and I, George and I laugh all the time. First of all, we just have fun what we're doing, That's the great part about being an entrepreneur. If it's not fun, you'd hired somebody else to do it, right? Mm-hmm. So, when we went through our stuff, that was the thing is he and I, he can coach people through what he discovered. I can coach people through what I've discovered. But if we can build a platform and help 1,000 authors, help 10,000 people, then our purpose in life is speechless.
It's a noble cause.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that drives you, Nancy? I think you've given me some clues there already from what you've said.
A couple of clues. Yeah. Those 8 beautiful eyes I get to look at and their freckly little noses. But I think also a compassion for... I remember what it was like. I've been homeless. I've been disabled. I've walked through divorce. I've walked through, having friends that no longer want to be your friend, in relation to religion and church and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, there's a lot. And until you've walked in somebody's shoes, sometimes you don't really understand what it feels like on that side. And if I were back in those shoes again, I would just hope there was somebody like me that would hold out a hand and say, let me walk this with you.
Mm. And how do you relax when you're not working in your business?
Okay, so I'm really good at detachment. There's a time to work and there is a time to play. And there have been so many hard parts of my life that nothing really is worth being that hard over. This is going to happen at the time and the pace it's meant to happen. Mm-hmm. And for, when my kids get off the bus for those 4 hours through the evening routine, I can enjoy that 4 hours with them. I've learned detachment. I've learned tapping. I use tapping to handle my big emotions and big feelings so that I can be present where I'm at doing what I'm doing.
Okay. When you say tapping, what do you mean by that?
Oh, it's a really brilliant system. It's called the tapping solution or emotional freedom technique. Anyone can Google it and research it. But essentially all you're doing is tapping on the left and right side of some of the acupressure points. And I go through 3 phases. I go through one round of like all the horrible, awful things that may or may not even be true, but they're the crazy things in my head. Mm-hmm. And then I go through a round of like, well, what if? What if it could be different? What if something else is possible? What if this is actually good for me? And then the last round is like, oh, girl, you got this. Come on, you can do this. It's not, look at the truth. Look at the people who love you. You're going to get through this. So it's a way for me to honor my truth, my feelings and hardships, and then a way to allow my brain to accept change or an altered view, and then a way to affirm this is going to happen when it's meant to happen, those kinds of things.
And you mentioned being present. Can you just talk about that a little bit more? I mean, I've heard other people talk about this, but I think it's obviously, especially in today's society, being present is something that most people aren't, isn't it? Because they're always distracted with mobile phones and things like that. So how do you stay present?
I have some amazing girlfriends that do recovery work using the Feldenkrais method and cortical field reeducation. It's a retraining the brain. And I've done that for many years. They taught me how to literally imagine your skeleton and then painting it. So sometimes I use my little girl's pink sparkly crayon and I paint my bones with that. Sometimes I'll use the turquoise and purple watercolors that my boys like to use. Sometimes I'll use mud and just imagine caking my bones in mud. So that was one technique I used for a really long time because, like you, I'd heard these other people talk about presence, but I didn't know what that was. And so I used that skill to bring myself into the present moment because our mind is always chasing for the future so that we keep ourselves safe. And our emotions are always in the past, that hurt feeling, that sad feeling, whatever. But our bones are actually the things that are present in this moment. So that's one thing. And then the other thing I did recently was go through a workshop with a gentleman named Jonathan Clark. And I hope you get the chance to interview him. And he describes it this way as living on the court as if you're the tennis player versus living in the stands with all those people telling you how you should be hitting the ball or not hitting the ball or paying attention, right? Except there really is nobody else up in the stands. It's our own internal dialogue. So just being aware, wait, am I actually on the court watching this person's lips and smelling the air and feeling the earth under my feet? Or am I in the stands imagining what those other people are thinking and saying about me actually being on the court? So I went through huge transformational seasons and workshops to get to a place where I can be present and take this moment for what it is.
You made me think of a saying from Jim Rohn where he said, wherever you are, be there. Which I think is very much what you're saying there. And do you have any entrepreneurial role models, Nancy?
Well, Jonathan Clark is one of them because he talks a lot about integrity. And I thought I was a person of integrity. I don't lie to people. I don't cheat. I'm, generally an honest person unless I've got to keep myself safe somehow. To me, I thought I had integrity. And the way he described it as integrity being whole. And I realized, my minivan looks like a mother of four minivan. It's just disgusting. So it's not whole because we trip over the skateboard and the backpack. And there are a lot of areas like that in my life that are not complete. They're not whole. And I'm working at cleaning those things up. And, he's a very gracious man to explain it and, hold us accountable to that. So he's one of them. And there are just so many. Anybody in the Louise Hay sector, Katie Byron or Nancy Levin, those women who write from a voice of strength, who honor the hardships and yet still move forward because we realize the bigger picture, the bigger purpose. Okay.
Nancy, can we talk about the time before you were an entrepreneur?
Was there one?
I don't know. That's what I'm about to find out, hopefully. What difficulties did you have to overcome when you started your business?
Thankfully for this one, I have kind of a scapegoat on it. And I think other entrepreneurs can feel this way. The finances are for me the biggest thing. Because I've had to walk through a divorce and making it on my own and having 4 kids. I didn't have a home. I didn't have a job. I mean, I literally started over. In fact, I actually walked away with debt. So I didn't even start out at zero. I didn't hit the pavement at zero. I hit the pavement negative and walked myself through that. So, with a startup, there's always the financial struggle. And I'm only the co-founder. And thankfully, George, the CEO and founder, manages most of that on his own. So I don't actually have to see the numbers. And even if I did, I would just take a deep breath and personally, I have had to walk through that too. So I can just have great compassion and say, all right, what can we do today to make this work? Almost a one day at a time. So finances are usually things that will trip me up. Go get it, organization, planning, those things I really like. And, I look at that as like a challenge and fun.
Okay. Did you have any doubts that delayed you starting your business?
A lot of times. And they still come up once in a while. Like, I only have a master's. I only have a bachelor's in communications. I don't have an MBA. I have served on boards. I've been the executive director of nonprofit organizations. But I don't have an Ivy League education. I don't have I lived in the Keys, the Florida Keys, for 25 years. I didn't do business on Wall Street. So sometimes that little voice will creep in and say, are you sure you're the person for this? The backside of that is I look at where I am. I know that because I have walked through some of those things, I have no fear to pick up the phone and call the next person to make it happen. And that's a skill not everybody has. So I'm just going to trust that what I bring to the table today is enough and I'm the right person in the right moment to make this next step.
I don't think you always need certification really to prove that you have it, do you? So, yeah, a great answer. And what mistakes did you make that slowed your journey?
I think maybe not asking for help or not trusting that the resource would come at the right time. I have a creative friend who recently had a hard time paying her bills. And so she was going to give up her apartment and, live in the car, do something kind of drastic. And I said to her, man, you're working on 3 books. One thing I know at that season, if you give up stability of a homestead, is you lose the opportunity to be creative because your focus has to be on survival. And that's one of the things where I said, I think, I just have been given some grace that I don't have, that I could choose to worry of the survival of the company. I choose not to. I choose to focus on what is the next step to make it possible. So I think if I've made mistakes in the past, I think I got hung up on the survival piece or the faults or the wrongness or the not enoughness. Whereas I choose now to focus on the potential and accepting, okay, if the system isn't broken, then how do we fix the system or create a system that does work? And if you systemize anything, it just works. Just add a system. Find a system, improve the system if you have to, and keep working at it.
Great advice. And what are some of the things that you did before you started your business that would be helpful tips for some of the listeners who haven't yet taken their first step of the entrepreneur way?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, so this is really hilarious. I had not left my husband yet, but I realized that I was about to be pushed out of that mothering zone and not really forced, but in a sense, forced back into the professional world. And so I've basically given up 12 years, not given up because it was beautiful. I loved being a stay-at-home mom and raising my children. And now the fact is I'm the breadwinner and I'm going to go do this. So I thought, oh man, sales has got to be it. I'm not going to double down making a salary. I'm going to double down this decade in sales. They make better money. Let me go do this. So being an entrepreneur, I found products I really loved and was convinced I could sell. Well, I learned a lot about what doesn't work in sales. And that year, I just jumped in with 2 feet. In fact, I worked for a British gentleman. He has a home in the Keys and has a website and a product to sell in the Keys. And so he was kind enough to give me the opportunity, and I blasted it, the best I could for those months until I had to leave the territory. And I learned a lot. People don't like people selling internet products because there's a lower level of trust. That was a hard thing to overcome. I sold an organic product that keeps fleas out of a yard and will keep mosquitoes out of your yard for 3 weeks. Well, it's made of garlic and also happens to smell like garlic, So it doesn't matter how great of a salesperson I am. That's not going to cut it. I helped a girlfriend sell her art. It's copper and glass and really beautiful. And so I learned some seasons. Like I showed up in North Florida at what would have been in South Florida, the peak season for buying. And she's like, oh, honey, our season just ended. You should have been here 6 months ago. right? So I learned a lot about the market and about the process of selling. So I'm not ashamed that I gave up that year and tried all these crazy products. I'm actually really proud because it taught me what I have today, and it also taught me not to have fear, and it taught me what I need to ask for. None of those people gave me a base pay. I paid all the gas, all the mileage. I did all the educating for their product. They didn't have any education process, So those are things I would ask for. And when we hire our own sales staff, I hope to, have that level of integrity, knowing what they need to be successful in the job.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you for that. Can we now just talk about your entrepreneurial journey a little bit? Do you think that culture is important from the beginning in a business?
That's very interesting. The last company I worked for, also owned by a lovely British gentleman, his name was Steve, and so was the first one. And so when I called the first one to say, hey, I'm working for another lovely British fellow named Steve, he says, every town has one.
I'm sure they do.
I said, great, then I'm going to love to travel the world more, But one of the things Steve, my former boss, did is the culture of the company said we will only work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. And family is first. As a really hard-driven woman, I was like, really? That's enough? Enoughness is one of those underlying issues for me. And sure enough, it was enough. I was able to stay within those boundaries, and I'm so thankful he taught me that. And it allowed us as a team to not cross each other's boundaries, not to be a perturbance in some way, but to support each other and be there during appropriate hours. Mm-hmm. I really am thankful that he modeled that for me. So yes, I do think it's important.
Okay. And knowing what you know now, is there anything that if you'd known it when you started out would have helped you to shortcut the learning curve?
Well, I grew up an only child, and I also grew up being codependent, which a lot of people misunderstand. Codependent people like to do things themselves. They like to be self-reliant. They often don't know what they want or what they need even. Mm-hmm. And so they don't know how to ask for help. And quite often they're reluctant to anyway. So for me, going back, I wish that I would have collaborated more, or going forward, what my intention is to collaborate more. And I was also given a lot of positions of authority at an early age. Mm-hmm. And I didn't quite have down the ability to be kind at all times. I'm a business person. I see things black and white, mm-hmm. and, just deal with it. And I will going forward, and I wish I could have, and I have gone back to people that I did not speak, tenderly or kindly to. I've really learned a level of grace and compassion to just say things in a way that is helpful. Mm-hmm. Toastmasters helped me with that too, learning the sandwich method. And mm-hmm. Those are two things. I think collaborating more and always being able to speak kindly to somebody.
Okay. You talk about collaborating more. How do you do that?
Oh, so it's really cool right now because we're putting together our advisory board. And I respect the CEO so much. He's just so much smarter than I am in so many ways. And yet we had a simple experience one day. I lined up 3 appointments with him with people that I knew in the technical industry, gamification and marketing and different strengths than what George has. And by the way, my boss drives a Tesla. So it's really fun. Awesome. And we were riding home after this day of appointments in the Tesla. We're riding back to where my car was parked. And he looked at me and said, thanks, I couldn't have done that. And I was like, what do you mean you couldn't have done that? It was easy. We just had lunch and tea and talked to people. And he was like, yeah, I wouldn't have set up all those appointments and reached out like that. So I think he and I are both learning, while we each have strengths, there are some areas that, we're going to ask for help in.
Okay. And you say that you went to Toastmasters. Do you still do that?
No, I spent 2 years doing that until I had, baby number 3. I think once mm-hmm. baby number 3 came, I was like, the level of childcare and negotiation to get to the meeting. My meeting happened to be an hour away. Yeah. So just for logistics, and for now, I'm happy at my skill level. Mm-hmm. But I would encourage anybody to spend at least 2 years. I did make it to the advanced levels. Yeah. And it's always an opportunity to go back. I loved it.
So what benefit do you think that gives people who are in business, other entrepreneurs?
Oh, it's so funny. Ahs, using words that are overused, great, awesome, nice. They're not descriptive. They're useless. And we are called to present publicly our products, our services, to engage other people in our missions in life. And being able to communicate it clearly makes it painless for the other people and makes it fun and effective for us. Somebody I work with has a hard time saying things concisely, which, as much as I talk, is funny that I notice this in other people. But they give you this one task. It's called table topics. You heard that? They would have thrown a nail in a bucket if I were at a Toastmasters meeting with that one. Conk. Okay, so get that one out of your vocabulary. And they ask the question. They'll say whatever the question is, and then they'll say Neil. And from the time you hear your name and you walk to the podium, you have to be able to respond to that question in 2 minutes.
Yeah. I do Toastmasters, so I actually do.
You know?
Yeah, I do. It's just interested to hear what you thought about it. So how much does gut feeling influence your decisions in your business?
I'm learning that one. My mind is so strong. I'm so stubborn that for a long time, if it didn't line up with how I saw the world, darn it, then I didn't go that way. Maybe because I've been humbled through my experiences, maybe because I've gone through that transformational workshop about being in the moment, that my gut is a lot stronger now. And I will listen to my gut, and I will respect the person in authority. So even if my gut says one thing, and it's not a matter of safety, or integrity, then I'll just let the other person ride out what they need to ride out to learn their lesson.
Okay. Life is made of constant change, whether we like it or not. And many say that the only constant is change. How do you keep up with change?
Okay, so I'm just going to tell you, I'm 46 years old. I have, marketing experience, but when you take 12 years out, things changed. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I might have the concepts of marketing, but wow, the way we do it today it changes, practically every day with the technology and the services and other companies or apps that pop up. I mean, it's just phenomenal how rapid the change is. So this is what I do. If you sign up for a webinar, they call you afterwards. Hey, we just want to know, can we provide your services? And so this is what I tell the poor kid on the other line. And I use the term kid loosely, but the other person on the line. I'll say, I'm probably not a candidate for your product. Could I ask you a favor? I took this decade out to raise my family, and there's just some things I need to catch up on. And so they have all been really gracious with me, and it hasn't taken more than 10 or 15 minutes just for me to understand the products better or how it fits in the big picture. I also asked another gentleman in the technology industry, I said, hey, could we just go meet for a cocktail, and can you draw me pictures, because I'm a visual learner? And so they kept talking about cPanel and hosting companies and just terminology I did not get. And literally, we went and had a beer, and he drew me pictures in my notebook so I could really understand the things that these other people were talking about. So taking that few months at the previous employer to do those few things kept me in a place of not being afraid to jump on in a technology business. I'm not afraid. And I know that I can learn whatever it is that comes down the pipe next.
What is your favorite book on entrepreneurialism, business, personal development, leadership, or motivation? And can you tell us why you have chosen it?
Yes, I had to think about that one for a minute because they're not standard entrepreneurial books.
Okay.
One of them is The Tapping Solution, because I think a lot of us are held back by some illogical thinking in our mind, or we get triggered in a meeting because that person actually represents somebody from the past, and then we're not effective in the moment. So when I recognize that I hit these triggers, these exterior, triggers and these false perceptions, the internal, false truth, but, what I was holding as truth, then I just tap it out so that next time I can keep my relationship clear with that person and I can move forward with the project or, that community. So the tapping solution was a big one for me. Yeah. There's The Work by Katie Byron. I love her work too. Basically asks yourself, is it the truth? We go into a meeting and we're like, that person should have done this and they shouldn't have done that. And my business should be at this point or doing this already. Mm-hmm. Well, is that the truth? And if I could give up that thinking, what would my life be like? Yeah. In fact, if the opposite were true, what would that feel like? Mm-hmm. So they're more accountability and moving forward pieces for me.
And you apply what you've learned from the work in your own life then, do you?
Yes, I do.
Mm-hmm. Great. Everyone, when you have a busy life, listening to audiobooks is a great way to expand your knowledge in the time that you may be doing other things, such as driving or when you are at the gym. We have a special offer for you of a free audiobook of your choosing. To choose your free audiobook, go to www.freeaudiobookoffer.com. As long as you haven't already signed up, then you will qualify. Nancy, what I'd like to do now is move into the future a little bit, so move your mind to the future. What one thing would you do with your business if you knew that you could not fail?
No, I would scale it now. I would put all these people in place that we need. I'd just work for the funding to make it happen.
Okay. And what skill, if you were excellent at it, would help you the most to double your business?
There are so many of those, right?
Yeah.
Because it's in finance, it's in sales, it's in team management, it's in creating a vision.
Yeah.
Probably onboarding, and I can't control what the authors want to do or not want to do. I can't control that part. And I think I'm as influential as I can be in presenting the benefits. Mm-hmm. So to me, it's in the sales, because without that, then, the rest of it's yin and yang. You have to have the integrity and functionality of what you're providing and the sales to keep that cycle going.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll just stick with sales to make it easy.
Okay, so we're sales. Okay. And in 5 years from now, if a well-known business publication was publishing an article on your business after talking to your customers and suppliers, what would you like it to say?
That we showed up in people's lives when they needed it most. Mm-hmm. And that we helped them, that they found help they were looking for, that they couldn't find anywhere else.
Marvellous. Thank you. And we're now at the part of the show where you share 3 gold nuggets with us. Have you got a favourite quote, and can you tell us how you have applied it?
No, there's so many quotes that run through. Yeah. I would say my father's voice is probably one of the strongest voices that I have mm-hmm. recurring. And he would always say to me, this too shall pass. Mm-hmm. This too shall pass. So whatever the struggle is in the company, if it's, the finances aren't right today, that's going to pass. If you don't have the right person in the right place today, that's going to pass. If you don't have the right system in place or the system is broken, it will pass. All of these things are temporary. This too shall pass.
I've not heard that one before. Thank you for that. And do you have a favourite online resource that you could share with us all?
I do. I like digitalmarketer.com. I pay for the monthly membership. It's $40. They have weekly webinars that I can go and learn. Remember I said I took that decade out of marketing, so there's so much I have to learn.
Yeah.
But I really love their writing. They give you so many templates and easy things to follow. So sometimes, and it's that, underlying story of, am I enough? Do I know enough? It's that piece. If I feel like I don't have the right message or the right methodology, I can go into the sounding board of these really, this really brilliant team and pull down their research or their techniques. Mm-hmm. And then I don't have to stand on my own 2 feet and say, hey, team, will you trust me? I can say, hey, listen, I'm not the only one saying this. Look, these other guys have found their A/B testing, and this is what worked.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you've mentioned a couple of times about the change in marketing in the last 10 or 12 years. 10 or 12 years ago, we still had the internet. So what was most apparent about the change that had happened in that time for you?
Well, I was living in a small town, And I still, even though I was raising my children, I still worked wee hours of the morning and way late at night doing some PR accounts, both in tourism and nonprofit and education. So I was still able, all of that decade, I was able to employ the skills that I learned originally because it was a small town. And so when you sent a message, it was still valuable because it was a small town. Yeah. And so, look, our world is not so small anymore. Mm-hmm. And to get your voice heard at such a volume is a different strategy. You know, building the user connection, the user experience takes a different process than just sending a press release or having an event, something like that. It has to be meaningful. Mm-hmm. It has to provide a solution and create value for them in their life. Mm.
Someone said to me the other day that the basic human need hasn't changed, though. It's only the medium that's changed.
Valid.
Mm. So as long as you tap into that need, the medium just becomes a way to obviously communicate whatever you're trying to say to them.
Well, I will agree with that to a point. Okay. And then I will also say that there are some of us so hung up on our side of the story. You know, this is the service we provide. These are the benefits that we offer. This is how we do it. When you haven't actually touched on the need of your user or your customer. Mm. So when I present it to you that in our case, authors need a revenue stream. Yep. Great. They got their book published. They're not making money on it. Mm. They do not like technology. They like their subject. You know, they're an expert in whatever it is. They're not an expert in marketing, sales, writing, putting up a website, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So if I come to you and say, I'm a platform to sell your book, that's great. And if I come to you and say, listen, I can create a revenue stream that's not going to be hard for you to do. It's going to be easy for you to do. And actually you keep 90% and we only keep 10%. Mm-hmm. Now I'm speaking more to their need rather than to what we offer.
Yeah. I think a lot of people in marketing tend to look from the inside out when they should be looking from the outside in. And I think that's a massive mistake, isn't it? And even big companies do. A lot of big companies do that. They talk about everything from their perspective and they forget what the customer really wants. They don't even know what the customer wants sometimes. Nancy,
when I lived in the Keys, I met the gentleman who invented the Marlboro Man, right? Do you remember him the big cowboy?
Yeah.
Right? What does every man want? To be invincible, to be big, to be strong, to be honored, right?
Yeah.
That was the brilliance behind that message. It's not what they offered. It's what the audience wanted. Mm-hmm.
I think the tobacco industry has always been quite good at marketing, though, haven't they? They've had to be quite creative.
Yeah.
And they've had a few challenges over the years. Certainly here, they can't advertise like they used to be able to. What is your best advice to other entrepreneurs?
Keep your vision, handle your emotions, and one step at a time. What's your next best step, right? I think sometimes we get overwhelmed when we look at the big picture, and then that overwhelm kind of seizes us at the gut and we stop moving and, breathing and what's the next best step.
Okay. Everyone, if you didn't manage to get a note of Nancy's favourite resource or her favourite books, you can find the links on Nancy's show notes page. Just go to theentrepreneurway.com and search for Nancy or Nancy Lucas in the search box. Nancy, is there anything else that you'd like to add about your business?
No, just if there's an author who wants a way to get their message to an ideal client, and if there's somebody out there going through something they didn't expect to find, themselves in, just that they would go to anactionplan.com. If we don't have your action plan there, tell us you want it. Mm-hmm. And, we're just in this world to help each other. We're meant to come and love and serve.
Okay. Nancy, it's been an absolute pleasure and honour having you on the show. Thank you very much for providing us with the insight into your entrepreneurial journey. So thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
It's a pleasure. You're welcome.
Thank you for listening to The Entrepreneur Way. Subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Twitter @Neil D. Ball.